As hunters and gatherers, humankind had minimal impact of the environment. Early domestication of plants and animals started to transform the land as people established settlements around food and resources. Since 1900s, agriculture has been largely increased in productivity through management practices such as pesticide use, synthetic fertilizer application, and selective breeding techniques. The Green Revolution of the 1960s was marked by advances in agriculture technologies that superseded traditional agriculture and were adopted as a whole. Although credited with helping ease mass famine, carried with an enormous environmental footprint and a growing disconnect with our food. Despite the increased productivity of the Green Revolution created, a crisis of food insecurity still exists globally and millions die of starvation each year. Growing your own food is a great way to start a backyard garden or a community garden. A former FGCU student started Pine Manor Community Center in Lee County where they focused to increase opportunities for home ownership, affordable rental housing, and safe, decent, sanitary housing. Increase involvement by residents in neighborhoods, approved activities, improve public safety in the neighborhood and the neighborhood's core infrastructure to promote development. The community garden helps the community have access to fresh and safe produce and is cared through volunteering and local gardeners and farmers. ECHO is a farm located in North Fort Myers, seeks to address world hunger by teaching sustainable farming techniques, promoting nutritional plants, and introducing appropriate technologies in poor areas around the world. One example is helping farmers through droughts. And this research addresses drought and is directed primarily to parts of West Africa. High temperatures and intense sun leads to loss of soil moisture as water evaporates from the soil. Widely spaced trees provide a little bit of shade, keeping the ground cooler, while pruning and leaves that fall reduce water loss by helping to keep the soil covered. Too much shade, though, lowers crop yields. Another initiative is community-supported agriculture. In this case, a farmer offers a certain number of shares to the public. Typically, the share consists of a box of vegetables, but other farm produced products may be included. Interested consumers purchase a share, and in return receive a box of seasonal produce each week throughout the farming season. The CSAs aren't confined to produce. Some farmers include options for shareholders to buy shares of eggs, homemade bread, meat, cheese, fruit, flowers, or other farm products along with their veggies. Sometimes several farmers will often offer their products together to offer the widest variety to their members. The current agribusiness industry has shifted agriculture from being fueled by the sun to a fossil fuel dependent system, leading to air pollution and the release of carbon into the atmosphere. Agriculture is one of the largest contributors to anthropogenic climate change. Petroleum-powered machinery is used every step: planting, irrigation, harvesting, processing, distribution, consumption, and disposal. Chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and animal waste runoff lead to excess nutrients of lakes and streams, creating dead zones in coastal areas. The health of aquatic systems is of particular importance in southwest Florida, as estuaries serve as nurseries for the diverse game fish, and is important for areas like tourism and seafood economy. Widespread use of the pesticides often lead to resistance in the pests it is intended to manage. Long-term exposure to pesticides has also been associated with increased cancer risks in humans. Circle C Farm is a predominantly online shopping local farm. Here, I'll be showing a video of how the farm looks like. It is 100% sustainable, pasture, grass-fed, grass-finished free-range, non-GMO, soy-free, corn-free, gluten-free, healthy, natural, and nutritious. It's the first and only farm in the entire state of Florida to have an on-farm USDA federally inspected and custom inspected abattoir. and butcher shop that is open to the public for the harvesting of their livestock. The animals are treated respectfully and cared for. They have a physical point of sale in Bonita Springs, but the actual farm is located in Felda, close to Immokalee. Circle C has been around 14 years and is family owned. Their primary product are meats. Animals are 100% free grazing and pasture grass fed and grass finished in their own grass pastures. Now, the difference between the sustainable and industrial agriculture system. As you can see in the infographic, the agriculture activities are responsible for 11 to 15% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Land clearing and deforestation are responsible for 15 to 18% of green gas emissions. Food processing, packaging, and transportation are responsible for 15 to 20% of green gas emissions, and decomposition of food waste is responsible to 3 to 4% of green gas emissions. On the other hand, in small-scale farmers feed the majority of the world with access to less than a quarter of all farmland. Small-scale integrated organic farms are more resilient to the face of intensifying climate change events like hurricanes than are plantations or monoculture operations. Regenerative organic farming could sequester more than 100% of current annual CO2 emissions via a switch to the widely available and inexpensive organic management practices. The UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food estimates that small farms produce up to 80% of the food in the non-industrial parts of the world. The goal of the agribusiness is not only to grow food crops, but also to create profit for shareholders. The high cost of irrigation systems, pesticides, fertilizers, and herbicides and GMO seeds make it difficult for small-scale farmers to compete with large industrial farms. Particularly in developing the third world countries, many farmers are deeply in debt, which in many cases results in loss of farmland. Increased mechanization further reduces sources of employment in rural economies. Some small farms are hurt by government-issued agriculture subsidies and the overall decrease in prices resulting from increased production on large-scale industrialized farms. Decisions made along with what are often long-distance supply chains are based on maximizing profits rather than the good for the surrounding community. Changing the economical environment to more local farming practices, being environmentally conscious with the resources while changing farming practices can make a path to a more sustainable way of farming. In the Harvest of Shame video that was provided in the Module 1, I learned that the farm workers had the poorest housing in the country in the 1950s. Their wages were below what they needed to survive. Families needed large quantities of children to help with the income of the household, but their kids could not have the education they deserved. Also, the farmers would attempt to do or try to do unionization for fruit picking workers, but did not have the voice in the legislation, and their employers did not care for them either. In the food chain video, I learned about the Immokalee farm workers and their fight against Publix. Farmers today are paid per bucket of produce they pick, and they earn a day a mere $42 worth of work, and that is about $10,000 a year below the poverty level. Many of these people have families, and it is not enough. We reap the benefits of their hard labor. Any major grocery chains have the control and power, and it has become a monopoly where the buyer decides how to pay the farms, and the farms have to figure out how to pay the workers. Farmers are vulnerable to exploitation if there isn't an organization that will defend their basic rights. The social issue of farm workers is an ethnic minority that is vulnerable, and it can be exploited. Before slavery was abolished, slaves were the ones picking the produce. Now is the immigrants. The wages they receive and the working conditions would not be tolerated if an American citizen would be the only choice to work the land. The Fair Food Program and the anti-slavery campaign in 2011 is a campaign that is credited with prosecution of agricultural slavery operations across the southeastern U.S. buyers who sign on the Fair Food Program agree to purchase produce from growers who provide various rights and protections for farm workers. These rights include the payment of additional penny per pound harvested, the ability to leave the fields during lightning storms or the spraying of chemicals, and protection from retaliation for reporting sexual harassment. Provided security to farm workers that they will gain a fair living wage, and many companies have signed up, like McDonald's, Subway, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and Walmart, but Publix has not yet signed up. In my food footprint quiz, I got a 7 out of 10. I quickly understood that most big farm animals like cows and lamb create more CO2 because of the methane. Also, choosing fruits and vegetables that are grown locally is more sustainable, and choosing fruits and vegetables that are in season is also a factor, so that food chains are not flying the produce or driving them across borders, creating more CO2 emissions from the transportation.